I took Jigglypuff, and my teammate took Pidgey to the last big tournament of Pokemon Pocket before the release of Sinnoh cards. I'm going to explain our decks, the games, and how we did in the tournament in the first ever episode of this brand new tournament gameplay series. In a world where every tournament is dominated by the same 4 decks, one strategic group of players has dedicated themselves to entering the biggest tournaments using meta-breaking Pokemon and ridiculous strategies. This is the Gimmick Sqwuad. Episode 1, Pidgey and Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff just doesn't exist in the big tourneys right now as of January 2025. The problem is that despite being an amazing stall card, which I imagine is going to get a lot of use in the future, Jigglypuff's evolution, Wigglytuff, needs 3 energies to pull off its attack. Since cards like Dialga from Sinnoh have not been released yet, there is just no way in-game to power up Wigglytuff in time for it to compete with the meta cards. Stuff like Mewtwo and Pikachu are just too fast. The only hope was to find a 1 energy card that could fight battles until Wiggly could come online. After mountains of theory crafting and Discord discussions, Randomways had the perfect solution to save my totally failing deck. Exeggutor EX is a Pokemon with crazy stats that only needs 1 energy. It can fight every meta Pokemon in the game right now and buy enough time for Wigglytuff to get online. Thus, the hilarious Sleeping Tree deck was born. A full grass energy deck that uses Exeggutor EX as the primary attacker, Mew as a backup tank who can retreat away with Budding Explorer, as well as counterkill some of the top cards like Mewtwo and Charizard EX. Jigglypuff can sleep stall if needed until your other cards come into your hand, and you'll eventually evolve into Wigglytuff, who becomes the primary attacker and primary status dealer of the deck. With double Erica cards allowing Exeggutor to stay in longer, to give you as much time as possible to get Wigglytuff up and running, this deck works pretty well with all of the cards synergizing with each other, but it does have some weaknesses. With only 1 Sabrina and no Giovanni, this deck is focused more on doing a fair and medium amount of damage and using sleep to steal opponents' turns. But it's very weak at bench sniping, doesn't have a lot of burst, and is very vulnerable to getting bench sniped itself. Let's check out how I did in my very first game against one of the most powerful decks in the meta, the winning deck of the last tournament, Celebi. Round 2 of the tournament, my first round was basically a free win, and I'm up against the deck that won the last tournament. What the heck? How am I supposed to beat that with Jigglypuff and shenanigans? I play my Golden Mew, have no idea how a free-to-play like me got that, yay luck, and am waiting to see what this terrifying demon of a deck puts down. Execute and Celebi. This is one of the best starts they could have. The only thing better is if they had Snivy. I'm really scared at this point, because if they get their Exeggutor online before me, I'm in trouble. I play Professor Oak here in the hopes of getting another basic Pokemon, but I get something interesting instead. I get Exeggutor EX and Budding Explorer. I play Pokeball and get Execute, and now I get Excited. This is because I realize that I actually have the perfect hand to pull the rug under my opponent. I set my trap and end my turn. My opponent doesn't quite know what to expect. And this is actually one of the amazing things about my Wigglytuff Exeggutor deck. It's actually good to be player 1. Normally you want to be player 2 so you can get that first energy. Look how happy my opponent is, putting the first energy down on their eggs. They get to attack me first. But I don't care. I get to evolve first. That is the awesome thing of having a deck focused on Stage 1 evolutions. I can evolve immediately on my second turn before my opponent will ever get the chance. Oh, ho, ho, it's time! I activate my trap card. I put an energy on Execute and evolve it into Exeggutor. Then I play Budding Explorer, allowing Mew to derp back into my hand, healing all of the damage they did. Exeggutor comes to the front, and I get to attack now. Say hello to scrambled eggs. I get heads and obliterate my opponent from the battlefield, including all energy they had. Now, normally, getting that lucky would be an instant win, but I'm not playing the strongest deck in the world, and I'm fighting the strongest deck, like this was the last tournament winner. So the game continues, and now, maybe, I have a fighting chance. So me against Celebi, and they get their own Professor's Research. I'm feeling pretty good though. I feel like I have a massive advantage. 1 prize point, I've got my perfect Exeggutor onto the field, I've got Jigglypuff in my hand, Mew in my hand. I feel like I got everything I need to activate my strategy. I play Jigglypuff onto the bench, and I start thinking to myself, wait a minute, this person has Sabrina. I gotta be a little careful here, so let me put Mew EX on the bench as well. That way if I get Sabrina, Mew can tank the hit. My opponent spends a lot of time thinking and then eventually decides to retreat their weakened Celebi for another one. It's just too risky to leave that in if they don't want to Erica it, because otherwise I'd have a 50% chance to win the game right there using Tropical Swing. They're not going to let me have that free win. I play Pokeball to thin out my deck a bit, but I decide ultimately it's not worth putting that Execute on the bench right now. I don't know if maybe I'll want another Jigglypuff later. Remember, once I evolve my current Jigglypuff into Wigglytuff, it can't use Sing anymore, and having Sing as a 1 energy stall option available at all times is nice to have, so I figure it just doesn't make sense to mess with my bench right now. But I totally want to mess with my opponent's bench. There's no way they're gonna let me Sabrina in Celebi, because that could let me win the game, so they're gonna have to give me Snivy instead. If I could KO Snivy, maybe Celebi won't be able to add on more energy. However, this was my only Sabrina, and it's a little risky. Even killing Snivy will only give me 1 more prize point. Was it worth it? I don't know. Let me know down in the comments if you would have made a different decision and maybe held on to Sabrina and damaged the Celebi instead. Although I wasn't able to stop the Snivy, as another one would quickly get put on the bench, my 2 prize point lead was massive pressure against my opponent. They would play very well, spending the rest of the game shuffling their cards around, keeping all their Pokemon low health, and trying to find a chink in my armor so that they could Sabrina me, knock out one of my basic Pokemon, and then use Celebi to kill an EX, stealing the game. But I made sure that every single turn I had an answer for whatever they were doing. I didn't let any of my Pokemon go down. Now absolutely every single one of their Pokemon is in Wigglytuff range, and this is checkmate. My opponent sends in their Celebi, knowing that it's all over and just trying to get in 1 more attack. Predictably, they are able to KO my Mew, which is totally fine, because I send in my Wigglytuff to take the win. My second game against this opponent would end in my immediate loss, as it's their turn to get Exeggutor first, and they wipe my eggs off the map, causing me to instantly lose the game. Our third match would be a coin flip contest between their Celebi and my Mew. I would win, giving me a 2-0 record in this tournament. But while I'm winning my first 2 games, let's check over and see how my allies are doing. Deathstrike, aka Double Dragon, would be playing a Venasaur deck in the tournament, but unfortunately they lose both of their initial matches. They would go on to have an amazing winning streak, taking 5 more games before being eliminated, but losing your first 2 matches is nearly guaranteed that you will not be able to qualify due to the way that tiebreakers and Final Cut work. Given that Deathstrike is a far more experienced Pokemon Pocket player than I am, I was hoping that Randomways, our Pidgey player, might be able to carry us, as I didn't figure I would be able to go that far. Let's see how Pidgey's doing. Randomways' amazing Pidgey is going head-to-head with a full-on Mewtwo deck. But there's a little bit of a problem. They both have 1 prize point, and it's Mewtwo EX with full energy versus Pidgeot. If Randomways can't win this very turn, Mewtwo will obliterate Pidgeot EX and take the win. But Randomways uses an ingenious Pokeflute, returning Ralts from the bench. This gives Scattering Cyclone exactly just enough damage to finish off Mewtwo, stealing the win with the power of Pidgeys. But unfortunately, in the end of this best of 3, Randomways just gets a little bit unlucky and is unable to finish evolving their Pidgeot. Gardevoir EX is super effective and has exactly enough damage to one-shot a Marshadow, giving the overpowered Mewtwo deck a lucky Game 3, and actually causing Randomway to drop their first set. Randomways might be the best player on the Gimmick Squad, but unfortunately, if you're playing a Gimmick deck with a Stage 2 evolution like Pidgeot, you're really running the risk of hitting up some bad luck, which did happen. This is why it's so crazy. Randomways could probably win multiple championships with a meta deck, but they decide to play crazy decks like this just to give that extra little bit of challenge and fun. This would mean Randomways would end up dropping, having awful evolution luck in their first 2 sets, and that meant it was all up to me. The newest and worst player of the Gimmick Sqwuad, all alone with my Jigglypuff. And I didn't even really use Jigglypuff against Celebi, but I'm gonna have to use it in the next game. Is it even possible for me to win this? But then I remembered, I'm not actually alone. I didn't build this deck myself. The whole Gimmick Sqwuad participated, Randomways refined it for me. I'm bringing together the full power and ingenuity of the Gimmick Sqwuad in this deck. It's like we're all in this together. Hopefully, I don't let them and this deck down. It's time for my next game, and the last one of this episode. Can I stay in the tournament? Let's find out. First game of the best of 3 against an electric deck. This is a proper Pikachu deck, by the way, and my worst nightmare. If I had to pick one deck that I am not good at going up against, it would be Pikachu. The reason is that my Mew EX is kind of useless here. I have to spend 3 energy to use genetic hacking, and it can't actually imitate Pikachu's move. My golden Mew is a golden waste of space at the moment. I'm sorry, I love you, Mew. But the truth is, if you tried to use Pikachu's attack, it would do 0 damage because I will always have 0 electric Pokemon on my bench. That means I'm totally reliant on my eggs and my Jigglypuff. But I couldn't draw Exeggutor this turn. All I can do is attack with a weak 20 damage Seed Bomb and hope. It's really not looking good for me, and I'm just hoping my opponent has as bad draws as I do and that they don't have Pikachu yet, or I probably lose the game outright. My opponent plays their first card onto the bench. I'm hoping it's not Pikachu. Whew! And it's a little jolting. We're safe for now. But Zebstrika activates, and now safety is out the window. Zebstrika can do 30 damage to any Pokemon, including on my bench. This means that until I draw some evolution cards, putting anything on my bench is ridiculously risky because it could just get 2-shot by Zebstrika. I'm starting to think that maybe I'm gonna lose the first game, which would be really bad. I play Mew on my bench, thinking, okay, it can't do very much to most of those Pokemon, but I need to do something with the energy this turn, and I don't really have a better option. I go ahead and play Erica on Execute. Not the best use of Erica ever, but it will buy me one more turn, just one more turn to stay alive, and maybe come up with some way to get out of this desperate situation. My opponent plays Professor's Research, getting 2 more cards for their hand. This is brutal. This is unfair. And then Pikachu comes out. I feel like I have no chance at this point. Am I gonna drop the first game? But remember, when you're playing in a tournament, you should stall as long as possible and make every possible move to try to win. Even if you lose this game, by playing like that every game, you'll eventually turn a loss into a win, and that's how you take tournaments. So I decide to do my best. I evolve Execute into Baby Exeggutor, a card that, honestly, I was considering removing from the deck, but I decided to give it a try. Before the tournament, I mean, you're not allowed to mess with the deck during the tournament. Anyway, I had questions about this card. It's supposed to be a last-ditch, desperate evolution in case you can't draw Exeggutor EX, which is exactly what happened here, and it turned out to be a lifesaver. 50% chance to get heads. Did I say lifesaver? I continued to question this card's existence in the deck. It only did 30 damage, allowing Zebstrika to stay alive. Well, it's still a little bit better than Execute, I guess? I've used up all of my Ericas. I don't really have any good attackers online, and my opponent just derps out their Zebstrika before it can go down, so I have no prize points. To make matters worse, Pikachu EX is fully online. My bench is in disarray. My team is a mess. My best attacker right now is a baby Exeggutor that has only done 30 damage, and a full-on 90 damage Pikachu EX with Giovanni is ready to smack me in the face. The use of Giovanni means that even if I retreat this Exeggutor, which is hard to do, Zebstrika can come in and kill it for free on the bench. So it's gonna go down no matter what. I am in a panic. I finally get Exeggutor EX, though I can only play it on my baby eggs right now, unfortunately, and I decide to give the energy to Jigglypuff instead, because I feel like I'm so far behind, I really need my best attacker, and that's Wigglytuff. Even though I don't have it in my hand yet, I am playing, I am praying, I am hoping that somehow I will draw that Wigglytuff EX next turn, to finally be able to do something in this game, because I just don't think any other card could possibly save it. Jigglypuff, it's all up to you. Exeggutor EX finally gets heads, and this is actually possibly important, because if Pikachu stays at 60 health, I could theoretically take it out with Wigglytuff EX. Whereas if it were at 90 health, that wouldn't be possible, since my deck does not have a Giovanni. I'm hoping that maybe I could take out Pikachu, but no. They retreat into Zebrastrika, not willing to take the risk. I'm afraid that Zebrastrika is going to hit my Jigglypuff, but it goes for the weak Exeggutor instead. That might have been a slight mistake from my opponent, and even the tiniest mistake can cost you a game in a tournament like this. I get Budding Explorer, which isn't really that useful. I was hoping for Wigglytuff EX, but that's okay. I evolve my back eggs, evolve it into Exeggutor, and take a tropical swing at Zebstrika. I get Tails, but that's fine. Even the minimum damage will take it out, tying the score 1 prize point apiece. I gotta be careful now though. If Exeggutor EX goes down, I will lose the game. If any EX Pokemon goes down, that person loses the game. And so of course, my opponent is not going to fight with EX Pokemon. They're going to fight with basic Pokemon. Joltik comes out and is looking pretty menacing. But then they put another energy on the other Joltik, and I'm thinking, oh, I bet they were hoping to draw a Galvantula, but then didn't draw it. Haha. My opponent got a little bit greedy, and every tiny mistake they make is one more chance for me to get a little bit of luck, or a little bit of outplay, and come back in the game. They send Zapdos forward, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's time to make a play. I finally draw Wigglytuff EX. I'm thinking about every possible move I could make. I could attack with Exeggutor, but I might only deal 40 damage, and then where would I be? I could switch in Wigglytuff right now, and if I get a sleep, I could win the game outright. That's a 50% chance to win the game. Right now. Opponent doesn't have any potions in their deck. Yeah! That would be a 50% chance to win the game. What's more, even if it fails, even if they wake up, it's not like I immediately lose. I could keep fighting. I would have more plays to make. Zapdos can't attack me. It looks like a good idea. I decide to make the play. I retreat Exeggutor EX and for the first time, bring in my Wigglytuff. It's time for Sleepy Song. Sleepy Song does 80 damage, but most importantly, puts the opposing Zapdos to sleep. If they do not roll heads here, Zapdos stays asleep and cannot retreat or attack. It's Tails! I'm so excited as I realize that I've just won the game. They use Sabrina in a desperate attempt to stall me, but that's why Mew is on the bench. Mew already has an energy and can retreat basically for free. I'm guaranteed to bring in Wigglytuff. It really doesn't matter if Zapdos wakes up now. I will KO it for the remaining 2 prize points, and hilariously, it still stays asleep. I retreat Mew, going into Wigglytuff, and take the final shot. If you're wondering why I'm making moves like putting energy on Exeggutor EX, it's just general good practice. Boom! Zapdos goes down, and I take Game 1 against Pikachu, one of the most powerful decks in the entire format. But this is a best of 3. 1 game is hardly enough. There are 2 more games we have to play, and I need to win 2 of the 3 in order to continue forward. Can I beat Zigai? Let's find out. In the next episode of The Gimmick Sqwuad. To protect the world from meta decks, to stop poor Pidgeys from getting wrecked, to denounce the evils of boring games. The Gimmick Sqwuad, cause that's our name. Subscribe to find out when new episodes are happening, as well as all the other fun stuff I'm making on this channel. And if you guys like this or noticed any mistakes I made during the game, let me know down in those comments. It's always cool to get better, improve, and maybe someday we'll take a Gimmick Sqwuad deck to victory, if we haven't already.